The gravy was still steaming when my mother smiled at me across the Christmas table and said the house was finally gone. We closed on your grandma's place last month. You were never in the will anyway. My sister laughed into her napkin. Good. She just wasted on that little office of hers. 11 faces turned to watch me crumble. I didn't. None of them knew the deed to that farmhouse was already in my purse. And in about 90 seconds, that name was going to turn Christmas dinner into the quietest room in the county. Welcome back to Lineage of Lies, where ordinary people meet impossible families and answer with quiet steel instead of screaming. My name is Simone Finch. I'm 34 and I keep books for the farms around Cedar Hollow. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe, because to explain how I ended up at that table holding a deed, I have to go back almost a year. It was a Tuesday in February. I was at my desk when the call came. My grandmother Opal had taken a bad turn. I was the one they called, not my mother, not my sister. For 8 years I had been the one driving out to the farmhouse with her pills, her tax forms, her groceries, and a thermos of coffee. I drove out past the frozen fields and found her propped up in bed, smaller than I remembered, but her eyes sharp as ever. She held my hand, then pressed a small key into my palm, the key to an old tin recipe box. When the time comes, you'll know where to look. I tucked the key in my coat and figured she was tired. I was wrong about that. That farmhouse was the only place I ever belonged. Summers were Opal's. She taught me to snap beans on the porch, to read a feed bill, to spread receipts across the kitchen table and add the columns out loud. Numbers don't lie, Simone. People do. So you learn the numbers. I opened my bookkeeping business at 22 because my parents wouldn't help with college, and Opal slipped me her egg money. My mother thought it was beneath us. Opal thought it was the finest thing anyone in the family had ever done. The last good autumn, she looked at the house, then at me, and said it plain, this place goes to the one who stayed. Opal passed 3 days after she gave me that key. I planned the funeral. My mother wore black like a queen. Brooke photographed the hutch and the quilts, narrating prices. Before the casseroles were cold, my mother asked what the farmhouse would fetch. Nobody asked about the barn cat. Nobody asked about the garden tools. They asked what it was worth. I stood by the tin box and felt something cold settle. I told myself it was grief. I was wrong. In April, my cousin Wade called a family meeting, at my parents' kitchen table, not a lawyer's office. Wade, a part-time notary with a tax shop. He read that Opal had left everything to my mother, the beautiful daughter-in-law, who cared for me in my final years. My mother dabbed her eyes. Brooke squeezed her hand. My name was not in the document at all. You were never in the will anyway, honey, my mother said, with the faintest curl at the corner of her mouth. I sat still, but 2 things screamed at me. 1, Opal would have choked on that phrase. 2, the signature was too steady for a dying woman, and the date was 3 weeks before she died. I said nothing. I drove back to my office and did arithmetic. Being the family bookkeeper means you notice what's missing. 2 years earlier, I had driven Opal to a real estate attorney, Margaret Howerin. She'd come out with a sealed envelope and a business card. I called Margaret. Before I saw her, I asked my family for the truth. My mother's face changed. Your grandmother is barely in the ground and you're fighting about money? Brooke, don't make this ugly, Simone. It's so like you to make everything about you. I understood then, they had a plan that required me quiet and ashamed. I went quiet. But not the way they wanted. I gathered facts. The estate was racing through an uncontested probate with a forged will. The house was headed for a public auction. I could not stop the sale in time, but nothing stopped me from being the one who bought it. Margaret's office smelled of old paper. She opened a file 2 inches thick. Opal had come to her clear-headed and signed a real will, properly witnessed. It left the farmhouse and 10 acres to me. To Simone, the one who stayed. I told her about Wade's version. Margaret's face went flat with fury. The will and probate is fraudulent. The original was in Opal's safe deposit box, and the key was in the recipe tin. I drove out to the farmhouse one last time, let myself in the back door. Lavender and wood smoke. The tin box was above the stove. I used the little key, it fit. Inside, a brass bank key and a sealed letter, my name on it in Opal's hand. I formed a company. Cedar Hollow Holdings LLC. I needed to bid anonymously so my mother wouldn't jack the price out of spite. I scraped together savings, a small inheritance, a mortgage. The house was appraised at $215,000. I could do it barely, but cleanly. My mother set the reserve low for a quick sale, a door left open. Brooke called to gloat. She'd put a deposit on a new SUV with estate money that hadn't cleared. If Grandma had left it to you, you just wasted on that dusty little office. I didn't defend myself. I just said, we'll see. The night before the bank box, I finally opened Opal's letter. She knew Sharon was underwater. Your mother loves money the way some people love whiskey. If they ever tell you you were never in my will, you put this letter on the table and let the paper speak. Don't fight them with shouting. Numbers are your strength. Quiet is your strength. The house goes to the one who stayed. That's you. It was always you. I cried the ugly kind of tears, then folded the letter away. Margaret and I opened the box. The original will was there. She laid it beside Wade's version. A genuine signature from a sick woman wobbles, she said. This one marches. The auction was a cold October morning. I sat in my car while a calm associate from Margaret's office bid for Cedar Hollow Holdings. My mother and Brooke were inside, celebrating. Bidding opened low. A farmer, an investor, and my man nodding. At $238,000, the gavel fell. My phone buzzed, sold to your company. Congratulations, Miss Finch. My mother walked out beaming, complaining about that pushy company that bid her up. She passed 30 feet from my car and never looked over. She had just sold the house back to the granddaughter she swore was never in the will. The money moved. My mother covered hidden debts. Brooke paid off the SUV. Every dollar they spent was a dollar I had paid. I sat in my office with the new deed under the lamp, feeling not triumph but a strange tenderness. I had kept a promise. My mother called, sweet as pie, to invite me for Christmas. She wanted theater and she wanted to be sure I wasn't stirring anything. Let's not have any drama. You were never in the will. Don't ruin Christmas. I said I'd be there. I meant it. And I meant the slim leather folder in my purse. That folder held 3 pages. 1. A copy of the deed. Cedar Hollow Holdings, owner of record. 2. A copy of Opal's real will. To my granddaughter Simone, the one who stayed. 3. Opal's letter in her own hand. I had rehearsed one quiet sentence. The lies had used an audience to shame me. The truth deserved the same room. At the table, candles and pine. My mother tapped her glass. I'm happy to share we finally closed the sale. We can all move forward. Then she looked at me with a smirk. Honestly, sweetheart, you were never in the will anyway. Brooke laughed. You just have wasted it. I set down my fork. I reached into my purse, brought out the folder, and laid it on the table. I took out the first page. This is the deed to Grandma's house, recorded the day of the auction. I turned it so she could read the owner. Cedar Hollow Holdings LLC. Her smile vanished. Second page. This is Grandma's real will. It leaves the farmhouse and 10 acres to me by name. Brooke went pale. Wade pushed his chair back. Third page. And this is the letter she left me. The one that told me exactly what you'd do. I folded my hands. I hope you enjoy the cash. A beat. since I'm the one who bought it. The table went so silent you could hear the candles. My mother turned on Wade, but he was already backing toward the door, gray as ash. I put one hand on Opal's letter. You said I was never in the will. You were right. The one I was in, you replaced. And I have the original. I looked at my sister. Turns out I didn't waste it. I bought back the only thing in this family that was ever worth keeping. I didn't stay for pie. I gathered my 3 pages and drove home. Margaret filed to reopen probate. Wade's commission came under review, and the forged will collapsed. The money was clawed back. Brooks sold the SUV. The house was mine, by purchase and by inheritance. That spring I fixed the porch swing and turned Opal's garden. Mr. Petrie brought tomato starts. I left the door open for my father with one condition: when you're ready to be honest. He hasn't come yet. Maybe he will. Here's what I learned. Family can vote you out of the story, but the people who actually stay are the ones who get to keep the house, and the name, and the truth. If you've ever been the one who stayed while others showed up only to collect, this story was for you. Comment the one who stayed if you made it to the end. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Lineage of Lies, because there's always another family, another table, and another truth waiting to be set down.